Before we start the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video, please guys. It helps a lot. Hey guys, it's me Bali, and welcome to Bali's Tutor Professionals. And since we are in SBA season, today we are going to look at SBAs. More specifically, we are going to look at the Cognitive, POA, POB, and Economics SBA. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to take note of is the fact that no matter what combination of those three subjects you're doing, it could be POA and POB, POA, POB, and Economics, POB and Economics alone, or maybe POB alone, you're only doing one SB. That is correct, one SB. So that one SB that you do will give you marks for up to 3 subjects. That could be a good or it could be a bad. For example, if you do really good, you're going to have 3 really good SBA marks. But if you do poorly, then you're going to have 3 poor SBA marks. So something to take note of. Secondly, the SBA Bible, which is what I call it, is located in your subject syllabus. If you go into your POA, POB, or Economics syllabus, and you scroll down to around page 60 something, you are going to see the mark scheme for your SBA. This outlines exactly what you need to do to get full marks in your SBA. Not only does it outline what you need to do, it actually shows you how they allocate the marks. So there's all the information that you need right there. But to make it even clearer for you, I am here to go through each part of the SBA bit by bit. So before we go through each section, I'm going to give you a full summary of the entire SBA. So your SBA is an investigative one. You are going to be looking at a topic, issue, or problem related to a business or some part of society that is related to the subject that you are doing your SBA for. So if you are doing an economics SBA, you are going to look at a topic, issue, or problem related to your economics syllabus. It could be unemployment, it could be inflation, for example. If you're doing a POB SBA, you're going to look at a topic, issue, or problem related to your POB syllabus. It could be productivity, it could be marketing. It's up to you. If you're doing a POA SBA, you're going to be looking at a topic, issue, or problem related to your POA syllabus. It could be profitability or liquidity. All right, guys? So once you choose your topic, issue, or problem, the next step is to outline your objectives. Your objectives will be the topic, issue, or problem that you chose broken down into more detail. You could have 2, 3, 4 objectives. I recommend 2. You're not going to get extra marks if you have more than 2. Right, guys? So once you get your topic, issue, or problem and your objectives, you are then going to do a background about the situation. You're going to talk about the topic, issue, or problem, how it got your attention, why this research is important to you, and how it can benefit society. Once you do that, you're going to talk about your methodology. You're going to talk about the way that you gathered information. You can choose 2 or more ways, but you need at least 2 ways to gather information to get your full marks. It could be questionnaires, interviews, observations, surveys, whatever method you want to use, you choose it. You're going to name the 2 methods to use, why you chose them. We're going to talk about how you administered those methods and what limitations you met. Once you complete that part, you are then going to do the presentation and analysis of data, where you're going to take the information that you would have gotten from using a methodology and go into detail based on your objectives. So you're going to look at objective 1, you're going to outline all the data that you got about objective 1, and you're going to go into detail on what this data means. Then you're going to go into objective 2 and do the same thing. Finally, you'll do your conclusions. So based on the information that we obtained, this is the information that we got, and you're going to conclude what information you got on your objectives. Then you're going to make recommendations based on the research you did, and then you're going to put your bibliography, which will outline where you got all the information, and if you want, you could have an appendix at the end, and that is the SBA. That simple. Now, we are going to go into detail on the SBA, and we're going to go through each section bit by bit, and we are going to use the mark scheme to do it. So before we even get into the mark scheme, of course, once you're starting the SBA, you have to have a cover page. Your cover page should have your research topic, a candidate name or names if it's a group SBA, your candidate number or numbers, which you would get closer to CXC time after you're actually registered, the business cognitive subject or subjects. So if you're doing POB, POA, and economics, you put all three. The school that you attend, the teacher's name, submission date, to the day that you're actually submitting the SBA, the examination year, and the territory. Territory would be what country. So it could be Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, based on where you're from. Now let's go into that mark scheme. So the first thing in that mark scheme is our table of contents. And it's very simple. The table of contents must accurately link your pages to your content to get a 1 mark. So if in your table of contents you have that your objectives are on page 3, when I open your SB, I should see your objectives are on page 3. And it should be accurate for the entire thing. You leave out your table of contents or it's not done accurately, you do not get your mark. Simple as that. Now let's move on. The second part is your topic, issue, or problem. Now you must state your topic, issue, or problem to get your 2 marks. And this is how they allocate the 2 marks. The first mark is given if your topic, issue, or problem is clearly stated. The second mark is given if the topic, issue, or problem accurately describes your project. So if my topic, issue, or problem is named an investigation into the marketing strategies used by TGI Fridays during the period of January 2021 to December 2021, but my SBA is showing the changes in productivity of the workers in TGI Friday, which is something completely different, then I'm not going to get that mark. If my topic, issue, or problem is about marketing, my SBA should be about marketing. Once we do that correctly, we get our marks. Here's an example of a topic, issue, or problem. The next step is for our objectives. And we have 2 marks to get here as well. The first mark is given if our objectives are clearly stated and linked to our topic, issue, or problem. So if my topic, issue, or problem is about marketing, my objective should be stuff like the change in the marketing strategies used and how effective the marketing strategies were, or the different market research techniques used. It must be something pertaining to marketing. The second part should be the objectives are realistic. The objectives must be realistic. So I cannot have some sort of objective that is just impossible to meet. If it is impossible to meet, you are not going to get that mark. Here's an example of some objectives. The third part is your background / overview. And here we have 4 marks to get. So the marks are starting to increase. And the mark scheme shows clearly how those 4 marks are separated. We have, it must include a description of the topic, issue, or problem, and the description includes the history. That's 1 mark. The description includes the development, so how this topic, issue, or problem developed. We need to explain why the topic, issue, or problem is important to the student, and we need to talk about the impact of that topic, issue, or problem on society. So your background should sound like so-and-so company is so-and-so type of company, blah, 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 blah. Recently, we noticed topic, issue, or problem. Topic, issue, or problem developed XYZ. This research is important to us as students because XYZ. This research would benefit society by XYZ or ABC. Simple as that. Make sure when you are designing your background, you hit all 4 markers because we want all of our marks. This is an example of a background. Once we get that out of the way, it's time to do our methodology. And here is where the marks start to increase. The methodology section is for 10 marks. This is 1/4 of the marks for your entire SBA. So it's important. So let's lock in. So you get 2 marks if your data collection instruments are clearly described. Notice it's 2 marks and it's instruments plural. So the hint is given already. You need to have at least 2 data collection instruments. Observation and interview, for example. The data collection instruments are appropriate for the type of data. So you must use instruments or methods that make sense based on the information you are trying to get. And that is 1 mark. At least 2 instruments used, another mark. So we see we have to have at least 2 methods of data collection to get our full marks, and we want our full marks, so make sure and have 2. Method of data collection clearly described. So I conducted an interview on so-and-so date. We visited so-and-so company at so-and-so time. We met with so-and-so person. We spent 15 minutes interviewing so-and-so person. We asked so-and-so amount of questions. It was a very successful interview. Go into detail on how you used your method. Then state why you use that method. And there's a trick that I use for this. Let's say I used interview. I just look at advantages of using interviews. One of the advantages of using an interview is that you get detailed information from the interviewee. The reason I chose to use an interview is because I wanted to get detailed information from the interviewee. Boom. Simple as that. So you justify the reason why you used each method of data collection. Then you state limitations that you face while collecting data. If you use 2 methods of data collection, put a limitation for each. So for example, it was difficult to get an interview date because the person was so busy, or it took a long time to collect the questionnaires because people took a while to finish them. Whatever your limitation is, you put them in there. This is an example of a methodology. The next step is the presentation and analysis of data. And this is also worth 10 marks. So your methodology and your presentation and analysis of data actually makes up half of your total marks for your SBA. Your SBA is 40 marks in all. Let's go through each section. Your data is presented with appropriate graphs, charts, or tables, 2 marks. So whatever you present, you must use tables, graphs, or charts in some form. So word your questions in your questionnaire or interview with that in mind. For example, if you have closed-ended questions where you have choices for the persons to select in a questionnaire, it's easy to turn that into a graph as opposed to an open-ended question. Something to note. Data is presented is relevant to the objective of the project. 2 marks. So I'm not going to present information talking about the age and ethnicity of employees if that have nothing to do with the presentation. All of the data that I'm presenting is going to be relevant to my objectives to get my full marks. Data is adequately analyzed. So I'm not just going to state the information. I'm also going to analyze it. I'm going to state what the information means. So when you get data and you give meaning to data, that is when it becomes information. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to analyze it, change the data into information that somebody could use. Data is analyzed using appropriate calculations, mean, medium, or mode. The easiest one to do is the mean. So try and word your questions in a way that when it's time, you can use one of these calculations for each of your objectives, at least one, right, per objective. So you'll have 2 or more. Findings are consistent with your analysis, 2 marks. So I'm not going to say my sales were $100,000 in year 1 and $200,000 in year 2. This showed a decrease in sales by 20%. That is not consistent with my information. I have to make sure that everything I say or my analysis is consistent with the data that I am providing. If I do all of these things, I get 10 marks in my presentation and analysis of data. This is an example of part of a presentation and analysis of data. The next step is the conclusion. And this is simple and it's 4 marks. The conclusion has to summarize the project for 2 marks and it must be logical and based on findings for 2 marks. So I cannot say, based on the information provided, sales increased by 20% when sales actually decreased by 10%. It must be logical and based on findings, and I must use it to summarize and end the presentation. This is an example of a conclusion. Now, second to last, the recommendations. I'm going to make 2 recommendations, and these are 2 marks each as well for a total of 4 marks in this section. The recommendations must be realistic and informed by findings. So I'm going to use the information as I got in the presentation and analysis of data to make these recommendations. The recommendations also contribute to a better understanding of the topic, issue, or problem. So I'm going to use what I learned by doing this investigation and I'm going to make these recommendations, right? So these recommendations will also help somebody else get a better understanding of the topic, issue, or problem that I did my investigation on. And that's a total of 4 marks. This is an example of some recommendations. And then finally, your bibliography. Your bibliography will state where you got all of your information from. There is no restriction on a particular reference style that you must use. You can use any reference style once you are completing the objectives of the mark scheme. And the mark scheme says this: the bibliography contains the names of authors, names of publishers, names and dates of publication, and are written in alphabetical order. Once you do that, you get your marks for your bibliography. There is no specific reference style. You don't have to do APA, for example. However you want to do it, you must fulfill that criteria. This is an example of a bibliography. Now for the next part where people lose marks. The first part where people lose marks a lot is your presentation and analysis of data. The next part is here, your overall presentation marks. 1 mark is given if you consistently use correct grammar and spelling. Now we are very strict here. If you make an error in your spelling or you make an error in your grammar, you are not being consistent, you cannot get that mark. Expression of ideas are logical and unambiguous. So make sure that everything that you are saying makes sense. Clear it with your teacher if you are not sure. Let somebody else read it and see if they understand what you are trying to say. If you can do this, you get your mark here as well. After that, you can or cannot have an appendix. It's up to you. In the appendix, you can have an example of the questionnaire that you used, maybe some of the interview questions that you used. If you got to observe some financial statements and they gave you permission to make copies of it, you can maybe show the financial statements there. You can put those things in your appendix at the end of the SBA. And that concludes the entire SBA. Now, my advice to you, if you are doing an SBA, it means you are in a secondary school. Your teacher is there to support you along the way. Most likely, that teacher will be giving you deadlines to meet, either to complete the entire SBA, so they can look at it, give you corrections on it, so you can do it again and give it back to them, or for you to complete different parts of the SBA, where they can look at it, give you corrections for you to fix. Meet those deadlines. The SBA is there to make passing CXC easier. This is 20% of your final exam, your final mark. You can more than get that full 20%. It is not impossible. If anybody told you it's impossible, they are lying to you. It is very possible to get your full marks in your SBA. Just do what is required of you. Follow the mark scheme. Listen to your teacher. And if you need assistance, feel free to refer to this video or even contact me directly. I hope this video helps, and I hope to see you on my channel again. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one, guys, and good luck.